start your day.
Our engineer Daniel Nganga is the managing director of the Moranga Water and Sanitation Company and joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you for being here this morning. We're looking at quite a number of things in terms of how we're actually going to get water flowing in the country. Before we do that, we normally go around the African country every week, the continent every week. Yes. Dennis lands in a particular country and then he comes to share the proverbs with us. We'd love to get your interpretation of that.
So this entire week we are in a country that will be christened vanilla country. Why? Because they are the largest manufacturers as well as producers rather and exporters of the same. We are in Madagascar, where 90% of the wildlife can only be found there. So when you see the animals, just know ukitoka ni hivyo, you can only see them there. It is also the fourth largest island in the world, right? And the proverb we get from Madagascar is, even a goat can bite when conditions become unbearable. Even a goat can bite when conditions become unbearable. How would you interpret it?
It's a very good proverb, which I think is resonating with our day-to-day lives, and especially in our country. And what I would say is, when you are pushed deep in the corner, even if you don't have teeth, you can bite.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have teeth, you'll find something to bite with.
Well said, Sana.
So, I mean, we are looking at a situation that's dire, and that in 2026, there are still people who have to go far and wide to look for water. And if we zero in on Moranga County, which essentially borders a number of other counties, and the situation of water here, then a lot is left to to be desired. Give us an overview of how the provision of water vis-a-vis the needs have lived out in the last, short period that we've been existing in.
Thank you very much. I must say that I run water in Moranga County, and in the county of Moranga, we operate with closely with the county government. We are ahead than many other counties because the source of water generally majority of water which comes to this city comes from Moranga.
Which comes to Nairobi?
Which comes to Nairobi.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, 80% of water that comes to this city, its source is Moranga. Matters coverage, we are at 85% in Moranga County. And I must say, as a country, we are about 72% as per the impact report that was released recently by WASREP. I must say, policy-wise, we are good. And the regulation of water services, especially in this country, is better.
Than what?
Than majority of African countries that we know. We have a gap, yes, and I must start by thanking the government because we have seen in the last budget, the budget for the water subsector has improved from 104 billion last year to 125 billion. That is a plus. However, we still have a deficit. We require about 300 billion for us to get into SDG number 6. We have a target of getting universal access to water by 2030. We are 3.5 years shy. 3.5 years shy of that target. What do we need to do? As professionals, we need to advocate with the policymakers so that we can get more budgets into the water sector. Also use other ways of getting revenues because the monies that we get from our normal taxes is not enough. It's not enough. As a water subsector, we are slower compared to other sectors like energy and roads in using private sector funds. Like we know Rironi or Summit Road is a PPP program, which is coming up very well. We need to accelerate advocacy with our policymakers so that we tap private sector funds.
One
to reach
asks the
that
question, when you talk about water access or coverage or distribution of the same, you've said that the country is playing at around 75%.
Yes.
Now, when you talk about 75%, that means there is a deficit of 25% of Kenyans who do not have access to clean piped water.
True.
What's making that 25% not be covered? Because, and this report covered what period and what are the challenges that we are seeing today that is making these Kenyans unable to access water?
That data is as at last financial year, 2025, 26. And I must say that there are some multi-sectoral issues that has made us not to get there. One, you look at matters governance. When you look at water is highly politicized sometimes. And we have to advocate to ensure that there's no politics, especially in water management, so that we can get into universal access. Two, even failure for us as people who are in the water sector to advocate for more resources into the water subsector so that we can achieve that gap. I must also say that the community also plays a part, because when we develop structures in this country, water infrastructure, we need ownership so that they are protected by the communities. Government alone will not do it. When we advocate in that line, we will basically achieve the target that we are meant to achieve by 2030. Yeah.
What is the water infrastructure that has been developed in the country over the last 5 years, for example? And what are examples of that?
We have mega dams that have been done to ensure that we have adequate water supply by our government.
Such
Look
as?
at Moche Dam, the Northern Collector Tunnel, which was completed the other day, which is bringing about, I think, 144,000 cubic meters of water into this city. Water supply has improved, and there are major other projects that are going on to ensure that we achieve the target that we are meant to achieve. Matters service provision. We are in the third cohort of management of water services by the county governments. We have seen a lot of improvement in terms of water management, in terms of the boards that are managing these utilities. And what we would urge as water service providers, I happen to be the emeritus chairman of Water Service Providers Association of Kenya. I'm in charge of advocacy. We are advocating with the COG and the county governments that we get, when they are appointing directors, let's not get directors based on how you have connections with your politicians. Let's get competency so that we are able to get the equation of water right.
When you talk about competence of directors that we see in these water bodies, we know the story for a very long time has been these are usually the low-hanging fruits when people fail from political positions. These are the places where they are thrown to just because you are rewarding those who supported you. How has that then hindered water distribution and access in the final end to Kenyans in terms of quality? Because people in those offices, one would say, do not understand the nitty-gritties that goes into planning all the way to implementation of water supply to an end. How has that affected the growth, the development of the water sector in the country?
In Murang'a County, we are ahead. I must say that we are ahead of other counties. And if you look at the professionalism that has been put by Dr. Irogo Kangata, our governor, and the directors that are there, the less I talk about that, the better, because even results can talk about themselves in terms of provision of water services and other services that are done by our county. However, we also need to look at Kenya and get away of ensuring that we don't bring political rejects into management of resources, not necessarily water services. And when you bring professionalism into the management, then you achieve your target quicker. I must say, how you grow a utility, it's like how it takes a child to grow in a village. It takes a whole village to bring up a child. The same way with water utility. We must ensure that we bring all stakeholders on board, the professionals in that county, the education groups, the women, the children, and the vulnerable in the society, so that we can advocate for good governance and management of this resource.
And yet, even with best practice, it doesn't operate in isolation. Neither does it operate, and that's what silos are. Because one good season is followed by a bad season, and then it's followed by a good season. And that Kenya came out of a debilitating drought, almost famine situation, whereby there was nothing. So how do we reconcile when we're also going into, look at the western part of the country, for example, with failed rains, that area is now going into a place where the food basket has essentially been affected. If there were mega infrastructure water projects that were available, would we not see a situation whereby folks would not have to be worried about things like, irrigation agriculture, watering of livestock, ensuring that if drought then hits, as it is currently doing, that you would not be worried about the water source? If truly those projects were there operational, would we be anxious?
What we are saying is true. In this country, we suffer a penury of floods and drought. Why? We have not invested sufficiently on storage of water. And that is what you are advocating for. And I must say, and I had mentioned this, we have seen improvement in terms of budget allocation for the water sector. It's about 125 billion, and majority of that is going to the resources, to manage resources. And it's our duty to ensure that we manage our resources so that future generations, of course, they'll be more than us, they'll need more water than us. It is our responsibility to ensure that we store the water that's available in its natural state, so that it doesn't cause flooding, and it's available for generations that will come after us. And we can see considerable improvement. That alone, we will not be able to achieve our agenda without reduction of what we call non-revenue water. We manage water, and this water we produce, but this water sometimes is lost and it doesn't generate money, and it has had a cost. When you look at the impact report that was released recently by WASREB, we are losing more water than last year. We have the non-revenue water has grown from 44% to 48%. This is unacceptable. When you look at the monetary value, it's about 14.8 billion that is going to the drain.
I'm sorry.
14.8.
Essentially being washed away, no pun intended.
It's washed away.
Why?
Whose responsibility is it? All of us. And I must say, and as a person in charge of advocacy in WASPA, we are requesting the government of Kenya to come up with an asset renewal fund, so that we can renew our assets that we are managing. When you look at our cities, our major cities, Nairobi, Mombasa, even in Murang'a, the assets that we are managing, some of them were developed before pre-corona period. When you look at how financing is done in the water sector, we are concentrating mostly on getting more resources, getting more water in the dams, and we are not renewing the infrastructure. So if the government had to come up with an asset renewal fund that is targeting on renewal of the irrigation system, then that will address the losses. Assets alone will not reduce these losses, without knowing that currently we are in the era of AI, As water managers, we should have utilities that are sensitive to the current technology. Like currently in Murang'a, we are using an app called Mobile Water. With this smartphone that I have here, I'm able to check the levels that we have in the tanks. I'm able to tell how the pressures are. I'm able to, even line managers are able to attend bursts when they occur through an enabled AI module that is able to measure the flow of water within our area of jurisdiction. We also need to engage our communities, ensure that what has worked in this country, we should implement it. I like the Nyumba Kumi initiative by the national government that is used to address issues of security. What are we doing? Actually, in Murang'a, we use what we call 10 connections. The Nyumba Kumi, as they report on matter security, they also report a line. They have a line that they are reporting on issues of water. So that together, we are able to reduce water that is being wasted. You may wonder why I talked about 14.8 billion is a lot of money, and it's washed away. Where does it go? We are not seeing flooding in this city. When you go to Mombasa, Nakuru, Murang'a, you not see flooding. Where does that water go? Is 48% is being lost. That water is consumed by somebody somewhere illegally.
Where?
That is why I'm saying we need to come up with technology-enabled companies through PPP programs that are going to assist our utilities arrestees. And I'm happy to say that I've seen an initiative by the Ministry of Water. There is a technology company called Ecumen that is supporting our utilities to ensure that we are able to do X-ray, for example, of the rectification system in the city, and are able to tell where water is drawn off, because pipes are not like power. Pipes, they are passed underground, so some of them must have been done many years ago, and we are not able to track where this water is being stolen.
I mean, when you talk about water distribution, so you are the source of water. Nairobi is one way or the other pretty much just the consumer of that water. And if you have infrastructure that you have developed in Murang'a that is now pumping that water to Nairobi, then Nairobi must be as well up to par to be able to access or to receive that water and distribute it. I want to talk about cross-border collaboration with any other water agency that is there, because when you get into Nairobi is Athi Water Services, right? Now, how good is the interconnection with other counties when it comes to water, so that at the end of the day we say, as a country, we are working together to ensure we are water secure? What's the collaboration looking like? What is the investments there is? What are the gaps, and what are we doing to fix that?
Water service provision in this country is a shared function between the two levels of government. The county governments, according to the constitution, are responsible for creating water companies and managing water provision. The national government is entirely responsible for development of infrastructure. For example, what you have stated around Nairobi, we have an agency. We have 8 agencies in the Republic of Kenya. What do we call them? Waterworks development agencies. The agency we have around Kiambu, Murang'a, Nairobi City is the Waterworks Development Agency, which is responsible for development of these assets, and it has developed a very good project, the North Collector Tunnel, which is delivering water to the city. The management of cross-border or cross-county water, cross-county water provision is done by the Waterworks, and that is what Earth is doing, distributing that water to Kiambu counties, part of it in Murang'a County, Nairobi County, and Kajiado, and I think Machakos. And I think it's a good framework because of the teething issues that may be there between the county governments. The national government is able to come in, and there is clear law on how management is done.
I'd like to take a break at this point. We're looking at how essentially it's going to be possible to provide water across the country and make up that 25% as an SDG by the next, I don't know, it's 5 years now is what we're looking at in terms of the goal. But then also asking the question that these folks who are carrying water, I'm still on that 14.8 billion shillings that's lost, or water that's being stolen. Where is it going and who is buying it? And if this is the case, we're talking about 25%, there are parts of this country where people, as we speak, are walking kilometers to get dirty water at best to use. How are we going to figure that out? Let's talk when we come back from this break.
The resources that we have are not enough. I must say that, for example, there are people who have private boreholes. Of course, they are licensed by WRA and they take care of that gap. However, as you say, of course, you cannot fail to get people who are either drawing water illegally without our knowledge, and perhaps cartels. We call them cartels, and perhaps selling at a margin. And that's why we keep urging our communities to be vigilant and ensure that they are able to report to us so that we can arrest that menace. I must also...
So people don't know? It's not known where this water comes from?
Sometimes people may have drawn that water from a WSP without their knowledge. But we work very closely with the community so that they're able to report this to us and we're able to arrest that. And I must say, despite the increase in non-revenue that you saw from 44 to 48, of course, one of the reasons is we got a lot of water that came to the city. And when you bring more water into an old recirculation system, you expect non-revenue will shoot. However, I'm sure as we advocate for good governance within our WASPA, we are urging managing directors to ensure that we strictly focus on the water that is being lost, because we cannot be talking about a water scarce country, because if you look at the water that is available in this country, every person has about 645 per capita cubic meters. And worldwide, you're supposed to have water that is available about 1,000 cubic meters per capita. So it would be very wrong for us as managers to keep to be losing 14.8 billion, and yet the water that we have is not available.
How bad is the vandalism factor when it comes to non-revenue water? Because this is the very same city where you would walk and there is a connection that has happened. Everybody says it's illegal, but it's operating anyway, you know. So we're talking in terms of field officers who are there to monitor, to ensure that everything is being played by the books, but don't do that. How much is that causing to the 25% that you're looking at, or to the 14 billion shillings that we are losing every other time because of non-revenue water? How bad is the situation from where you sit?
Sometimes cartels would run behind us and draw that water. But I must thank the effort that I have seen with the Minister of Water. Initially, after the Minister of Water started what we call a water police unit, the police that are, their work is nothing else but to look to assist the water providers in this menace. We recently used the water police in Moranga when there was a such incident last year, but one, and we were able to arrest that situation. So I would urge the water service providers to work closely with their waterworks development agencies so that they can use that force that is available to help eliminate this menace.
When you talk about water, water is fine. There is the provision of water, but there is the quality as well. The other day I was speaking to a certain lawyer who was saying that the water that many are being provided for does not meet the quality there is. So even as we are working towards ensuring that we can provide water, so there is the old infrastructure there is that would see seepage of contaminants into the water system. So water cannot be the end user of that water isn't assured that this water is clean or good for consumption. So in terms of fixing that, where are we? Because then again, we don't want to supply water that would make people sick.
Quality standards are there and are set by WASREB and WHO. And when you look at the impact report, you'll see 97% of the water that is supplied this country is of good quality. However, because of historical injustices, people tend not to believe that water that you draw from the tap is clean. But for example, if I talk about Maranga, how I manage water, the water is of very good quality. People draw water directly from the tap and are able to consume as such. And in majority of water service providers. However, it is our responsibility, and that's what we do to ensure that we do testing of the quality of water every hour to ensure that what you release to the public is of good quality. It's also our responsibility to keep renewing the assets that are delivering this product so that we reduce contamination.
Whose responsibility is it to ensure that water that is drawn from the boreholes meet the quality standard? Because at the end of the day, WRA is the one that gives licenses for one to drill a borehole. But at the point of supply of this water, who checks the quality standards to ensure that the end user gets water that meets that which, say, your institution has cleaned, as processed, and is good for consumption? Because the assumption is whether it's water that comes from the borehole or that which comes from say, Athi River meets the standard. Whose responsibility is it? Or is it that I just get to an apartment, we have borehole water, but I know very well it is salty water? Whose responsibility is it?
According to the regulations, every area has a certain water service provider that manages, or water company that manages water there. And within that area, there may be boreholes. It is the responsibility of that water company to ensure any other person who is providing water on their behalf meets the required standards. Because when there's an outbreak of cholera, outbreak of whatever, then it is not that private person who is responsible according to the law. It is the work of the water service provider. And for us to ensure that we reduce this, as we keep advocating for good governance and good management of the water services, even us as the managing director should be held responsible by the particular boards. Let every board, the water service board, give targets to their managing directors on and remuneration based on how best you reduce your non-revenue water. Because it would not make sense to see 48% of our water going down the drain when you are complaining of lack of resources.
And so 48% of 48% of water goes down the drain, literally.
Yes.
And if you just move east, this direction, east, to parts of Taita Taveta, Tana River, and then east go north, Garissa. There are people today who've woken up in the morning and are going to look for water for kilometers to get water that's not even clean, first of all. So I'm conflicted, because how do we say that water is being provided and that resource then being networked to 75% efficacy when we still have that experience happening within the borders of the same country? And how do we get to a place whereby, we say piped water for all and things like that, SDG goals, and we are saying that we are 5 years away from reaching that, when there are still people trekking to fetch dirty water for use? And for the managers who have performed well within the county governments, well, of course, still being in quotes, how then do we reconcile that situation where people are operating with that experience today?
There is a big gap between management of water in our urban areas and in our rural areas. And from my view, what the county governments should do is form a strong urban water company that is able to slightly charge tariffs that are cost recovery, and they are able to make small margin that is able to support the rural areas. Because, truth be told, the demand for water in urban setup is different from rural setup. Because in an urban setup, you will find people have a cistern and a shower. In our rural Kenya, perhaps those things are not there. So the per capita demand is different. So we should the counties should have an urban company that is professionally run, that is allowed by the county governments to charge cost recovery tariffs and get some margin that is able to take care of the folks in the rural areas.
You see, when you talk about even the Tana River or Garissa that you talk about, most of the time it would not be raining there. It would be raining in Masinga. The dam is full and the waterway spills off. And that water would go downstream and would flood the downstream in Tana River and Garissa, And with that, then, we also have to bring in the national conversation that has been there in terms of having over 100 dams that is being constructed to help address that problem. So one asks the question, if the 100 dams that have been promised to the people became a reality, what would that do, number one, in terms of provision of drinking water, provision of water for irrigation, and overall, the national water security that is the dream of Kenya as a country?
I think that can happen, and for us to ensure that we are able to limit floods that are there, not necessarily, even in Zoya, sometimes we have floods, is ensure that we increase the dams so that we can arrest the flooding. How do we do that? We need to. Government will not achieve that alone. We will have to do that together with the private sector, and that's why I'm keeping repeating that it is time that county governments should allow their water service providers to provide water with a cost recovery tariff. So that water service provider is accountable to a county government and is able to get subsidies that are going to address certain issues. The national government is responsible for development of those mega infrastructure. And I said, like it has happened in the Mombasa Summit Road, it can happen in the water sector. We need to get professionalism into it. We need to ensure that the two levels of government, the county and the national government, are speaking.
The reason why I bring that up is because as we talk about Rironi Summit, which is a project that we see is ongoing, we welcome it. But we equally can't go far away from the fact that there was a dam that was to be constructed, the Kimorer Aror. There is the Toke Dam that is not complete despite the promises. And one looks at as if the water sector is not being given the attention it deserves, because the other projects you're mentioning have come after the fact, So how, from where you sit, is the water sector being given the attention it deserves? Why? Because it is the water, if there is proper development of mega infrastructure that would feed into food security, into elimination of cholera diseases that are waterborne diseases. But is water sector being looked at as a critical component that would address food security and health in the country?
Water sustains life. There's a saying that goes, very many people have lived in this world without love, but none has ever lived without water. None, and you haven't heard of none. And that's why we're here, to ensure that we bring these sentiments to the policymakers so that this can be addressed. In our WASPA, in our water association, we are advocating for example, a reduction of power tariffs that are used to pump water. Because in most of our counties, I think we're using a lot of power in getting water into homes. If EPRA is able to give a subsidy to streetlights to about 10 shillings or something, 9 point something per kilowatt hour, why not water? Which is more important than light, because you can substitute light, because you can even use candle in your house, but I don't know what is the substitute for water. So I think this is something that we should take not only make it emotional within our stakeholders, so that we are able to get the attention that we deserve.
So what is needed in terms of leadership and governance to then make that a reality from where you sit? Because to a certain extent, whether it's within county governments, there's, maybe making it by. But what do you think is needed in terms of reforms to ensure this? Coming off the backdrop of something that you mentioned, whereby we're dealing with decades-old infrastructure to have a modern-day solution. How can some of these things be worked on? And if I can add a third thing there, is that it seems that people are not talking to each other.
Yeah.
That people are operating in silos when it comes to governance here. Because, it sounds like a no-brainer to me when we say that, yes, EPRA should be able to say, then can we reduce the amount that we are charging water for if it's for the good of the whole nation, which everybody seems or should be working towards?
I started by saying that we are in the third cohort of management of water services by the county governments, and we have seen a lot of improvement in whatever you are calling talking. We have something we call intergovernmental water sector framework that is working very well between the national government and county governments to address this. However, we need to ensure that we advocate for technology-supported programs that would address the adequacy or the gaps that are there.
If you are managing water, say in a place like Nairobi, sorry to use that example, and every other turn you make there is a water bowser, what should that tell you in terms of supply of water to the people, especially where you manage? And with that in mind then, what must every other water agency do to ensure that we see less water bowsers, but clean water that Kenyans can get at the comfort of their houses? Are we seeing a situation where these water bowsers are businesses that many are benefiting from, hence no need of supplying water to the masses?
Generally, in our cities and not only the cities, you will see that provision of water in our informal settlement actually is different from high end. If you look at higher estates in this country,
they are not water bowsers.
They are not water bowsers. But when you go to the lower part, you see water bowsers. What do we need to do as managers of water in cities? Ensure that we provide management structure of water in those informal settlements, so that we don't allow them to be overcharged. Because you're paying, if you look at informal settlements in this country, they are paying 100 shillings per 20-litre jerrycan. Well, somebody in a place like Kilimani will pay less than 45 shillings.
Are you therefore confirming that there is inequality when it comes to water provision, especially in the informal sectors, in informal settlements? And if that's the case, and it is known, what would you reckon is the slow pace in addressing that problem?
We need to face it head on, come up with a plan. Of course, you understand about cartels. I think, Dennis, you know. And the question you're asking, I think,
with the cartels,
you have a better answer.
No, with the cartels.
But having said that,
as a water manager, let's just focus on the cartels. As the water managers who know that there is existence of the cartels, is it that cartels are so powerful that we can't deal with them with all the resources that we do have, backing of the government, backing of the water police, that we are unable to deal with these cartels? Or are cartels backed by someone?
What I'm saying, the cities are different, and I started by giving you an example of Moranga, and we were able to get water police and dealt with the cartels, and that is what other water utilities should learn from us.
I hear you talk about goodwill, political goodwill in dealing with these problems.
Exactly.
Okay. What would political goodwill do to water provision to the 55 million Kenyans that we talk about today, and that would go to infrastructure to the improvement of technology that we use today, to the proper communication between different agencies that would see water access is affordable and is accessible to all.
What I think we should do in our cities is ensure that we governance is key, and we have seen that happen in major water utilities. Companies should be let to run independently, of course, with mentorship and oversight from the county governments, without day-to-day interference. Companies were born to operate like commercial entities, so that universal access is achieved. And also ensure that you get competent managers and directors to read from the front. Like in Moranga, we are using, to try and address non-revenue water, we are using smart seals provided by Sepio to ensure that when you tamper with our meter, you want to draw water. But by stealing, we are able to detect and we are able to deal with you. I think that those are some of the tech issues that should be used by our water service providers.
What do you see as the future? Because we started off when you were talking about, well, with what we have in place, is likely to see achievement of these goals in the next, few years. Do you think that Kenya will actually get there? And what are some things that must be then put in place in order to achieve that?
The future is bright. Yes, we can achieve universal access by 2030. What do we need to do?
It's in 3 years.
In 3.5 years?
Yeah.
What do we need to do? We need to accelerate the budgets that our county governments are giving to that sector. Like, for example, if every county government was able to provide about 18% of their budgets into water service provision, and the national government, like we saw, is able to attract PPPs, then we will achieve our goal by 2030.
And can you do that without dealing with some of these issues under here that you've mentioned? Theft of water, loss of water. But that needs to happen while all these other things are being stamped out. How do those two work in congruence to then allow this universal access to happen?
The issue of theft and of water provision, that is an issue of management and should be dealt by the respective county governments and the water companies. At the same time, as you pump more water into the water sector, also look at the issue of inefficiency so that we can address the gap that is there.
How has now, in terms of wananchi plugging into this conversation, because they are the ones who demand this water clean, affordable and accessible, right? And with that, then there has to be a conversation where then they become your number one agents in these Nyumba Kumi initiatives that we see, that they're the ones who report, first of all, if there is vandalism. They are the ones to report whenever there are leakages. They're the ones as well to even report when it comes to quality or lack of it thereof, to ensure that everything is sustainable. How do they plug into this conversation?